It all started on 4chan a few years ago. Around 2006, an anonymous user on 4chan left a post on one of 4chan's forums. It said, "Hello, I walked hard on this game. Please replace it. It would very fun." It also included a link to a RAR file on MediaFire. Most people would disregard the post due to its abhorrent spelling. The ones that did visit the link, they would see that the file was called Eddy and Eddy the Game, and forget about trying it. But the ones that did play it were in for a hell of a ride. Most of the reactions to the game were quite different than one might think. "What the hell? Holy shit, man, that was too scary. Do not play it, it's not what you think it is." And many other posts along the same topic. The post was removed a few months later because of the public reaction to the game. Also, the MediaFire link is no longer available as the original account holder is shut down. What you're about to read is a description of the game. The information gained about the game was received by the various users of 4chan who were unlucky enough to download the title. In order to start the game, you have to extract the RAR file into any folder. Attempting to run the game's exe file before doing so will result in an error message. Once extracted, the game can be launched by clicking Ed and Eddy, the game.exe. The game will automatically enter full screen and cannot be closed unless you press Alt F4, close it with the task manager, or press the exit game button in the game. The game starts with what appears to be a poorly designed fan game. The title screen is an edit of a screen cap from the show, and the words play game, exit game, and the game are edited onto it, more than likely using Microsoft Paint. The play game and exit game are clickable, and they do exactly as they say. Starting the game will jump to a black screen with a few blank areas to enter information. The game asks the player for their name, their cell phone number, and the player's address. The game states at the top of the screen that entering any of the information wrong will remove from the experience of the game. Once the players enter their info so they can begin the game by pressing a button, they say play at the bottom of the screen. Pressing it will throw the player straight into the title. The game is in a first-person perspective, and the player starts out on the sidewalk of a poorly rendered 3D cul-de-sac. The in-game music is an endless loop of the Ed and Eddy opening song, and at the bottom of the screen there is white text that acts as a dialogue box for the game. Now, as soon as the game begins, the white text reads, "Step right up and try our all new scam, or trick. I mean magic trick, only 25 cents. The game doesn't give the player any directions on how to play the game, so they have to fiddle around with the keyboard until they figure out the controls. WASD are used to control movement, the spacebar is used to jump, and moving the mouse moves the camera. Movement is slow, and jumping is floaty, and it doesn't go very high. Once the player figures out how to control the game, they'll eventually move towards the middle of the cul-de-sac, where a few characters and other objects are visible. Now, in the center of the cul-de-sac are flat models of Ed, Eddy, Double D, Jimmy, Kevin, and Sarah. The models are the simple, flat models that are always facing the player no matter where the player stands. Think of it like Doom or Wolfenstein. All the characters are standing around in a poorly designed model of what appears to be a rocket ship. Moving close to it causes a clip from the TV show to play. The clip is a scene from Season 2, Episode 2 of Ed and Eddy called Ready, Set, Ed. The clip is a scene of Ed stuffing all the kids into the rocket car, and Eddy enters to explain why Double D and Ed couldn't come with them. The clip's quality is poor, and it ends abruptly after Eddy finishes the explanation. Now, after the clip ends, the player is back in control of the game, but now the player is in a small 3D box-like room. The player can't do anything at this point, but after 30 seconds or so, they'll receive a text message on their phone. Now, if they can receive messages, if not, the player must use Alt F4 to exit the game. The message will say, "Type fast." The message is from a private number and can't be messaged or called back. Typing fast on the keyboard will cause the game to show another clip. But this time the clip is of an old crash test footage. The audio is missing during the clip and no sounds are playing. The footage plays once and then freezes on the last frame. Pressing any button on the keyboard will cause the game to return to play mode, but this time all the features of the box room's wall are replaced with the final frame of the car crash scene. In the middle of the room, Eddy and Double D stand next to each other. Approaching the two will make the white text on the bottom of the screen change to say, "We killed them, Eddy." "I know, you idiot." "Oh my goodness, think of their families." "No, you moron, think of the quarters." and after a few seconds, the texture of the room will be replaced with pure black and the text, "You will pay for your sins." Then the game will freeze for a little bit and put the player in a new room. The new room is a long, pure black hallway, and after being in this room for a little bit, the player will receive a text message saying, "Run." Some players wouldn't know what to do at this point and, frankly, quit. Other players will type the word "run," and the game would play a voice clip of Double D crying that was taken directly from the show, and the Ed, Edd, and Eddy opening music would stop playing. The white text at the bottom of the screen would now read, "Run." If the player looks to one side of the hallway, they'll notice a flat model of Double D slowly getting closer, but this wasn't the same Double D model from earlier. Double D was now black and white, his eyes were now edited to be black and red, and he had no mouth. Touching Double D at this point would immediately cause the game to crash. Players that touched Double D claim to have heard footsteps inside the room even if they lived alone. If the player moves away from Double D when they reach the end of the hallway, the game will freeze and move to another location. The new area was a very tall room. It wasn't very wide, but it went up very high. The text at the bottom of the screen now read, "Tap the spacebar." Tapping the spacebar will cause the player to constantly jump, and the player can now fly upwards by tapping the spacebar. After a few seconds, a white brown polygon will appear at the bottom of the map and slowly move upwards. Touching it will cause the game to crash. But if the player flies all the way up to the top of the room, the game will change locations one last time. The player is where they started the game, in the cul-de-sac, but now nobody is in the center of it. Only a guillotine stands in the middle, and white text now says, "End this horrible game now." But if the player does not touch the guillotine within a minute, they will receive 17 text messages that all say, "End it." If the players idle any longer, they'll receive a phone call. If they answer it, they will hear a reversed version of the Ed, Edd, and Eddy opening, and once it finishes, they'll hear a man yell at the top of his lungs. Touching the guillotine leads the player to a menu screen that says, "Congratulations, you beat Ed, Edd, and Eddy the game. You will receive the making of DVD soon, thanks for playing," along with the button that allows the player to quit the game, and that is the end. If the player looks into the game files after you beat the game, they'll notice a new JPEG file called Butter Toast, and it's a black and white photograph of an autopsy. The exe file for the game at this point will also be missing. The making of DVD now after the player beats the game, they'll receive a package about 3 or 4 months later. Only the first 50 players that beat the game ever received it. According to a player that received the package, the box was small, but smelled extremely bad. The cardboard on the small package was also wet, according to the player that received it. Within the package is a blank CD, the making of Ed, Edd, and Eddy the game written on it with Sharpie. If a player loads a disc in a computer, they'll find an MP4 file called The Making Of, and the file obviously is a video. It starts off with the Ed, Edd, and Eddy opening sequence, and after this, a white screen with the words, "The Maked of the Game." The screen remains like this for a few seconds and cuts to the crash test scene featured in the game. The clip now has sound but remains quiet until the car hits the wall, and once it does, the video will play screams that are so loud they can break the player's speakers. Pausing the video here doesn't stop the screams for some reason, and the video will force the computer to shut down after it ends. Players that watch the video have had some strange occurrences afterwards. They tend to hear their phone ring. Even though nobody is calling, some players claim to hear the reverse version of the theme song opening from far away as an echo. And when some players sleep, they'll wake up abruptly to the sound of footsteps or a sound of someone whispering "End it," although nobody is around. The game is no longer available on the internet, and the creator of the game still remains unknown. We have not come across Ed, Edd, and Eddy in a while. This is literally the definition of the creepy private messages that from time to time pop up on this channel. So for this one, let's run through the ropes in a very, very literal sense. As far as acquisition of the game is handled, it's a game that shows up on 4chan, the internet. And well, after acquiring my games from numerous different threads and numerous different websites and whatnot, it's incredibly believable. In fact, I downloaded some creepy Russian game from some obscure foreign file share server I've never heard of in my life a week ago. And maybe you might see it on this channel, but point remains is this kind of stuff is not out of reality to happen, and while there are cliches, and this in fact is a cliche, if the cliche is inserted properly, then it's just fine. There's no problem with them as long as they don't really kill the entire mood. So the first act of this went out just fine. Now the actual game, the real meat of the story, is a little weird. For the most part it's well handled, but there is some off elements about it. It seems like one of those EXE games you see on this channel, not exactly as overtly cringy, but rather well done. Fair comparison would be Lost.exe or Remember.exe, Legend of Zelda EXE games that were showcased on Here's the Three-Parter series. The game is not terribly long, and the events that happen are fairly creepy if you think about it, when playing it alone in a dark room, in front of a mirror with your face glued to it. A lot like downloading some creepy files off some forum that should have long been retired. So, hey, put yourself in the mood and it does offer the spooks. Now, as far as events in the game are considered, it seems very possible, but the part where the game affects the cell phones through text messages and calling kind of screw me up. I mean, as far as technical believability goes, it kind of does give you a slap to the face, but I suppose if you wanted it to really happen, it surely can. You know, you could hook up the game using network to a bot that calls and messages, maybe through Skype with the perpetrator loading in credit whenever necessary, and using a custom-built API, the game can receive data from many clients that, are putting in their age or addresses or phone numbers, whatever it may be, to a server master bot running on the client machine, or, the perpetrator's machine that sends it through the API to Skype. I mean, it is possible from a technical point of view. It's just a little far-fetched as to why it's handled in that certain manner. And some of the things that happen on there, such as the guy screaming into your ear after the backwards music jingle, is just a little too hilarious when you start to really think about it as a whole. Receiving the actual, box, the package, is the very creepy part. I mean, this is the reason why I don't give my address to random queries ever. I mean, you shouldn't, because why the hell would you give your personal information out like that? But I have a fear of shit like this actually happening. Look, whatever anyone says, if I got a package from some weird address containing a making of DVD to a fucking EXE game, which actually isn't that scary, considering what's on that DVD, it's very underwhelming, but the fact that the package was sent is what sends chills down my spine, and hell, anyone's spine if you really think about it. I mean, would you like to get that? I don't think so. So at the end of the day, this creepypasta as a whole it does stick to some tried and true mechanics that have happened throughout creepypasta time, but as a whole it was handled very well and I quite enjoyed it, and for an Ed, and Eddy creepypasta, it was handled quite well, and honestly, I think that you all should definitely give this a read. I'll leave the links in the description below, as always. And if anybody does have the game-making talents, I really, really, really hope this game might have some form of reality. Although it may not be the original thing, I kind of would like to see a real sort of EXE version of this game too. But hopefully that might come into fruition. That being said, this has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, part of Creepypastas. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it, and let me know what you thought about the creepypasta in the comments below. What would you rate it, and what would you change to make it better? This is me, Mutahar, and I'm out.